Oh, by the way, I think
That's for
Oh, hi. Hey, Susie. What's
Oh, there it is. Is there creamer?
Good morning, how are you?
I'll start buying. Now, when I'm the bottles, half and half. Dad, that is going You can't get enough. Okay, so I'm gonna do an announcement about no surgeries to that? What kind of surgery do you do? Heart surgery? Oh, so you see the effects of salts.
recently recruited from the
Yes, so Grandview is part of Kettering now. You want of everything, baby. Okay.
Feel like donating some money.
I think we go back to that. One of
This is for free.
And so this is the, how many times? Okay, so how, so this is broadcast. And recording. And in order to get the broadcast, you have a certain length. So I thought the reason to do this is so we could. We did. So they, anybody who accesses that link, they can see this real time. And there's another button here that yeah.
Well, you know.
As long as we Is there a limit to the number of people? I got trouble. Try the chest. Thank you. Yeah. So did you try this? Are they good? Because the person who makes them is very big. So he made this. I will. Part of my. Yeah, well, I know it. He said, I got it covered. Yeah, he gave it, apparently he gave it. Dapper's
Succeeded.
what I thought this morning. I looked Dapper. Good. Did you tell this doctor that you came all the way from? Yeah, okay, good. So one of the things we're going to start doing, get our 10 as far as So She loves her stuff. So I want her to be try this out.
Somebody else did it. Start and process.
That's okay.
Morning, guys. Good. I didn't want to miss any night to you. You were zooming right by. I thought I might miss you. Okay, so I need feedback on the tuna fish and when you taste the food. Tuna fish.
Hello, hello.
There's a lot to do.
Now, supercharged.
Yeah. Associate rabbi there, but because Rabbi Bobby House is basketball, I am tied up in the religious school thing. Yes, but I didn't want to interrupt and so our partnership with Kettering, very important. So I don't pick up your time. Oh, I got it. And I'll do that in the religious school. Hey, one more week.
Now, keep the pressure up.
Hey, when he comes back on my birthday.
Oh. Good morning. Is this thing on? I can hear myself. You guys hear me? Okay. So, welcome this morning to our continuing Writer Band Brunch series. We're kind of in the middle of our schedule. In the Temple tablet, we have the next several speakers coming up. The next one is next week. It's Barb Katz, and she's going to do a two-part on March 6th and the 20th on facts and fictions in the American-Jewish-Black relationship. So that should be interesting, but we have in our Temple tablet this information. If you don't get our tidbits, you can go to our website, which is tidayton.org. Rada, where are you? Rada, are you listening?
Yes.
Okay. Rada comes to us all the way from Columbus because she thinks this is such a wonderful program. And of course, she's right. She's a smart woman. And so go to tidayton.org and you can sign up for our weekly or however often it comes out. News is it weekly? Weekly. It's called Tidbits, but you can sign up for that. And in there, you can have links because the next thing I want to talk about is this new technology we have that we can stream real time and we can record. And so one of the things that our committee, the Writer Band Brunch Committee, is considering, figuring out how to do this, is so we can not only have the real-time streaming in the future, but we can also put it up on our channel on YouTube so people can see that in the future. So these are some of the things that we're thinking about. The menu today was approved by Dr. Say your last name again?
No,
Yes.
no,
Yeah, it's going to take me a while to get that. So, and obviously the talk is about the dangers of heart. He is a heart surgeon, so he sees the effects of heart, and he's done over 10,000 procedures. And he's currently the surgery chair at Kettering Health Dayton. Since he began his surgical practice, like I mentioned, he's done over 10,000 cardiovascular surgeries. The Consumer Research Council has placed him on the list of America's top surgeons for over 10 years in a row. So he is here to raise awareness of the dangers of table salt. He's written books on that. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the good doctor, and he's going to educate us on how we should be eating better. Doctor?
Thank you. Can you hear me all right? Is this thing on? Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for having me come over to your temple. I'm a heart surgeon, as you pointed out. I work in Springfield and in the Kettering campus, the Dayton campus of Kettering Health System. And I've been a heart surgeon since the early 80s, almost 4 decades now. And I lost count of how many operations I did. But my mission of late has been to prevent heart disease. So I trained in general surgery back in Brooklyn, in a Brooklyn Jewish hospital. So when I first came to this country in the mid-70s, my first home was the Jewish hospital. in Brooklyn. So I was 5 years there. And during that time, I've been to the Jewish events, festivals, and temples, etc. But it's been a long time since I've been back in a Jewish congregation. And I appreciate the offer, and I thank you all very much. I've been to any number of churches in the area and around the country, especially the minority Black American neighborhood churches over the last few years. But it's my first time to be in the temple, and I appreciate the opportunity very much. So, somebody asked me if I have a golf club, and I'm good friends with Moses. Our friend Moses, you all know him. So apparently he plays golf too, but I'm told he cheats sometimes. So when he takes a swing and the ball goes towards the water, he takes his other stick and points to the water, and the water separates. The ball goes right through and goes over the green. Did you hear that story? No? So I also checked with him this morning. He told me on the tablet he got from the mountain, the 10 Commandments, there's nowhere in the tablet. It's, God created everything for us before he made man, right? In almost all religions and all cultures, it says before man was created, God created everything man ever needs, right? Agree? But in the tablet specifically, nowhere does it say, God said to Adam, go ahead and put salt in everything I made. Did he ever say that? No. But that's what we do now, right? We put salt in virtually everything, including the water we drink, we put salt in it. And then all sort of things. But on the screen, you have these two things. Smoking, you all know about smoking, right? Anybody here smokes? So this is going to be somewhat of an interactive session. So I'm going to be engaging you in conversation as much as possible, so you don't fall asleep. And also I stay awake. And I would encourage you to please take the pamphlets on the table. They are take-home messages, very, very important. These are not my opinion. These are well written in the literature and recommended strongly by associations like American Heart Association, which is a non-profit organization dedicated to prevention of heart disease and strokes. But unfortunately, their voice is being drowned out by the big money in the processing industry. So I try to synthesize the information from the American Heart Association and present it in a way that you all can understand. So going back to smoking, I want to ask you, ma'am, why don't you smoke?
Because I don't like smoking.
You don't like smoking.
I did smoke though.
You did smoke.
When I was younger, but I quit.
You simply don't like the taste of it, smell of it.
No, I
Okay.
can't stand smoking.
You can't answer it. You know, if you were to not add salt to your food, and just in a few days, you will say the same thing about salt. You cannot stand the taste of salt. Not just because of its health benefits, you just can't stand it. That's how simple it is, actually, okay? So, by and large, smoking has become unpopular, unsocial. People have to hide in the bathrooms and outside the doors to smoke. Why is that? Because we know that smoking is very dangerous to health. It took a long time to get to that point. And smoking, in fact, is extremely dangerous. It hurts every part of the body. Not just, you can name a part of the body that smoking doesn't affect. There's no such thing. Every single part is affected by it. So among the most important ones is lung cancer. Lung cancer. Lung cancer is #1 killer of men and women. Men and women. People might think breast cancer kills more women. No, lung cancer kills more women. Lung cancer is the #1 killer across the world in all cultures and all societies. Men and women, #1 killer. But 95% or so of lung cancer happens only among smokers. A very small percentage of lung cancer happens in non-smokers. So if you were never were to smoke, 95% of lung cancer is gone. 90% lung cancer is gone. And if you go to any of these cancer symposiums, and they parade through people who survive lung cancer, or survive cancers of different kinds, and you see on social media, I survived cancer, this is my last chemotherapy, et cetera, and you don't see lung cancer survivors. Very rare it is, because lung cancer is deadly. By the time you detect it, majority are already past cure. So that's how bad lung cancer is. So that's why you don't. And if I ask somebody, do you smoke? And you got a very visceral reaction. No, I don't smoke. I can't believe you asked me that question. But in the same token, I ask you, put salt in your things. Oh, yeah, of course, I love salt. But I'm here to convince you that putting salt in a food is actually worse than smoking. American Heart Association says 80% of heart disease is preventable. 80%. 80% of heart disease is preventable. Something that I do day in and day out. So the reason I got into it, to prevention aspect, is one gentleman come up to me, if you operate on somebody, you help that particular person. But if you talk about how to prevent it, you're helping a lot more people. So I said, oh my God, I never thought about that. So I got serious about it and got into this mission only about 15 years ago. So global risk factors of death. There are about 150 slides. I promise you I'm not going to go through all of them. I will try to limit the number of slides to very few. So it's not me saying, World Health Organization released this report. High blood pressure, I hope you can see that, alone, as one of the problems from eating salt, kills more people than tobacco. It's not my statement. It's World Health Organization. It was released in 2009, okay, almost how many years? More than a dozen years ago. We still are not paying attention. It kills more people than tobacco. That's why I have the term public enemy number one. That's where it came from. Public enemy number one. So it kills more people and disables more people than anything else. So that's why I got into this mission. Impossible. Prevent hypertension. Why is it impossible? First thing is, as I walked in here, one of the ladies approached me. If I don't eat salt, I guess I'm not eating anything else. I guess I'm not eating anything else. The idea is that if you don't put salt, food doesn't taste terrible, and you're not going to have a social life, you're not going to find anything, you're leading a dull, unsocial life. So I can't eat. So there's unfortunately a common theme, but it is not true. So our family has gone salt-free for 15 years. 15 years. So, can you hear me in the back all right? Okay. Our family has gone salt-free 15 years. I came from South India. And we are, just like the South in America, we are used to very high salty, spicy processed foods. But we've gone salt-free since I started on this mission. And I can tell you, if one of you came to, or even my own relatives and friends come from my part of the world, come and eat our food, they cannot tell there's no salt in our food. We eat all the traditional South Indian, spicy, tasty foods and flavored food. And they cannot tell there's no salt in it. The point is that you should not think that if you're not eating salt, you're going to have a bland, tasteless, worthless life. Now, what's the point of living life? It's exactly the opposite. You will still enjoy everything that you normally enjoy. You got to get creative. And more importantly, you don't suffer all the consequences of putting salt in your food, which are going to make you, you may not live longer, but you won't suffer all the consequences of salt. No, you're going to die someday anyway. You will tell me. Might as well die of this. No, it's not about dying, actually. We're all going to die. There's no question about that. The real problem is how are you going to live your later years of life? Are you going to live with dementia? Are you going to live with heart disease? Are you going to be taking 15 pills? Are you going to be running around with doctors? So many people have ideas about I'm going to retire there, here, everywhere else, and save a lot of money, buy a place somewhere else. You know how many of them cannot do that? Because by the time they actually retire, they are stuck with so many doctor's appointments. They have to come back for doctor's appointments or stay, they cannot leave. Their support system is not there. So you don't really enjoy your retirement as you plan. So it's about living, not dying. It's about living healthy as long as you live. Living independent as long as you live. Not so much how many years you will live. That's important too. It saves lives. But to me, a lot more important to live healthier life until your time comes. So that is a lot more important. So this has become mission impossible for two reasons. One, people think you're not going to have any life without salt. Number two, people have no idea how many different ways table salt affects you. No idea how many different ways table salt affects you. So I have them listed all over there in all the papers that you have in your hands. That's how many things table salt, and the list keeps on growing. The list keeps on going. If any one of them on the list catches your attention, stop me right now and I can talk about it. Because I'm not going to be able to cover all of them. So the list is over there too, and it's on your papers, and don't hesitate interrupting, okay? Don't hesitate interrupting, because I don't want anybody from your league thinking I should have asked this question. And I'll stick around after the presentation if you want to talk to me personally. But please feel free to stop me anytime. I'm a surgeon. In the middle of doing open heart surgery, we get called by the nurses all the time. Something is going on. So I'm used to interruptions, okay? So this is how many problems you get from eating salt. Not all of them kill you right away, but you live with any number of these things. Is it worth it to you to have the pain and suffering of osteoporosis, which is coming to pretty much all women? Is it worth it to live with dementia? Not to mention strokes and heart disease, heart failure, kidney failure, all those things we all know about. But these are different things that are coming. Type 2 diabetes, one other thing that comes up. So people tell me that without salt, how can you live? Including physicians sometimes argue with me. But I'm here to tell you that the amount of salt human beings need, what is needs actually sodium, not salt. So there's enough sodium that human beings need in the food that we're supposed to eat. You don't have to add table salt to meet the requirement of sodium. That's a big mistake. You may get away with some salt. We'll get to that. But do we actually need salt to have normal health? No. There are a few exceptions. Some people have some tumors or advanced kidney disease, etc. But by and large, you do not need table salt to meet your sodium requirement, just like you don't need salt or many other things that are needed for a human body. On the screen you have babies of all mammals. During the first year, the baby grows 3 times the size, the fastest period of growth, and only on mother's milk. And they don't suffer sodium deficiency. They don't. It's a mistake to think. And there are any number of different animals and species around the world on this globe. Somebody counted them, said there are about 30 billion. And none of them add table salt to their food. We're the only ones we do. We're the only ones we do. And so there's a price to be paid for them. So it's not just me. This Dr. Dahl testified in Congress in more than 50 years ago. More than 50 years ago, based on his years of research. And bottom line, he says there's no need for table salt or sugar in our diet, added sugar than it. So the industry picked up on the sugar part, okay, because they are ready-made things, low-calorie things made, all kinds of things. And they created a new business for industry. The same company makes regular sugar stuff and says, if you want to have fun, drink the real thing, eat the real thing. But if you want to look skinny, drink the low-calorie thing. And the same company advertise against each other because there's a market for low-calorie. There are literally thousands of products, low-calorie. But the industry does not want to make low salt things. Because why? Low salt means you take less product. You're going to eat less. So they don't want that. And the low calorie things are not proven to benefit one bit. There's all kinds of actually additional problems on low calorie if you want to do the research. But anyway, so this goes back to more than 50 years ago that you do not need table salt. So somebody asked me earlier on, is there any evidence to show the benefit to cutting back on salt? This is one of many studies. What is interesting about this study is just in a matter of 12 weeks, 1 out of 3 came off medications. So taking pills for high blood pressure, by the way, high blood pressure is the most common health problem in the world, #1 health problem in the world, and it's preventable. High blood pressure also is the most common health problem that makes you take a pill for the rest of your life. Once you start taking a high blood pressure pill, there's no looking back. It starts with 1 pill, 2 pills, 3 pills, 5 pills. If you go to a nursing home, they're taking 19 to 20 pills on average. 19 to 20 pills. It all started with 1 pill. And we didn't stop and say, why am I taking this pill? Can I get off this pill? Like somebody asked me just, yes.
So if we do start with a high blood pressure pill,
Yes.
if we adopt this diet that you're talking about, can you get off the pill?
Yes, that's exactly what it says here.
Sorry, I didn't get that. I was listening to you, I wasn't reading.
So this is my experience. So many people come up top that all the time. Now I take 2 medications. I used to get 3. I used to take 1. I'm not on any medications. Very, very common. So if you want to scale back, you're taking, if you start taking blood pressure pills, you're just got on a bus that's going down there. Okay? You're just checked into your Roach Motel, no checking out. But if you want to stop it there, you have to start on the first place to start is cut your salt. The other area that I hear about constantly is I lost weight. People go on so many different diets and pay lots of money and go through surgeries even. And in a few months, a few weeks, they're back to square one. Doesn't work for them. But if you take the time to get creative and start enjoying unsalted food, you not only lose weight, that weight stays off. And you don't like salty things anyway, as I just pointed out, okay? So weight loss, start with salt reduction. And they talk about exercise. Yes, exercise is good, but exercise will not make up for eating salt. Just like smoking, there's no medicine that will make up for smoking. You don't quit. There's none. Same thing with the salt too. There's not enough medications we can give, enough surgeries we can do to make up for the damage it does in your body. So weight loss, coming on the medication, and look down further. Contrary to the popular theme, where if I don't eat salty food, then I become unsocial, I'm happy, but people actually happier. Less depressed. Not only taking less less blood pressure pill, they're taking less pain medications, antidepressants, all those things. You're happier. Exactly the opposite. It's worth a try. Okay? So I hear this all the time. And this is a study from Australia that showed that. So we need to, I tell my physicians walk the walk. So these next 2 slides are very, very important. I have them on your handouts. You don't need to actually study or just glance over it. In a single glance, you have a list of, fruits and nuts. I go back and forth, okay? And the red line is sodium, and the blue line is potassium. So you all agree that fruits and nuts are things we can eat, right? And that's actually the most natural food for human beings. You can eat fruits and nuts without putting through any process. And you can eat them anytime. So you see, just in a glance, that the things that we're supposed to eat are very high in potassium and very low in sodium. And that sodium that there is not salt. It's sodium that human body needs. So that's how we get our sodium. We need ever so little sodium. But we need a lot of potassium. you will see from either fruits or nuts, same stuff. Okay? And it's on your hand. So you hang it up on your refrigerator, a constant reminder what you should be eating. Okay? So we are supposed to eat a diet which is very high in potassium and very low in sodium. But most of us, regardless of our economic status, don't eat enough fruits or enough nuts. Instead, we put more and more salt in everything that we eat and drink. So we're doing exactly the opposite of what our human body is built. And one Tulane professor calculated that our kidney is being bombarded about 70 times its capability to tolerate this salt on average. So at some point, the kidney says, I had enough. And at that point, you start developing high blood pressure. So at what point you develop high blood pressure? This is also on your handout. Is a study from Dr. Dahl I showed you earlier on, who went to Congress. He found it was something very interesting. He did this very interesting experiment on rats. He found by feeding them salt, some rats become hypertensive very quickly. They develop high blood pressure and die very quickly. And some rats did not. So the red line, or the rats, develop high blood pressure very quickly, and the green ones were resistant, did not. So he called them, the red ones salt sensitive, the green ones salt resistant. And being salt sensitive and salt resistant is transmitted to the next generation, on and on. So he's able to create an entire line of rats who are salt sensitive or not, or salt resistant, either. And he found every variation in between. Okay, so how soon you get hit with this problem with the salt depends on where you fall on that particular graph. So just so you know, Black America is the most salt sensitive ethnic group in the world. By far the most salt sensitive people. Caucasians on average 25% salt sensitive. So unfortunately, there is no easy test to tell you how salt sensitive you are. Maybe 10 years down the road, we might come up with a test that tells you where you stand with it. What's your salt tolerance level? But right now we don't. So a smart thing to do is you might think you might be salt sensitive and try to cut back on your salt intake to a point you're not putting any salt. 25% Caucasians are salt sensitive. So now what happens if we eat salt? Here comes the thing. What is high blood pressure? So I have this problem. I walk around the hospital and stop a nurse or a student and ask them a simple question. What is high blood pressure? So this is a third obstacle. People have no clue what high blood pressure is, including people in the medical profession. Oh, there's something, my pressure is high, so I take it. So what do you mean my pressure is high? What does it mean? Why is the pressure high and why it happened? What did you do to yourself the pressure is high? And what happens after the pressure is high? And this is hopefully something I can have your attention. My most important mission today is to explain in the simplest way what is high blood pressure. And I don't use any slides. So most of you know salt is like a sponge. It retains water. It retains water. People take water pills, most common medications used. Those who are salt sensitive know that if you eat something salty, by next morning your shoes don't fit, or your ring is too tight, or you put on 2 pounds just like that. Those are very salt sensitive. And some of you sitting at home, it retains water. And if you really just use that example alone, if you cut back on salt, so much of the water weight goes away just like that. You don't need any medication. So salt retains water, simplest way to explain. Okay? And what happens then? You all realize heart is a pump. As we're sitting here, each one of us, the heart is pumping 5 liters of blood. It's pumping. It's pumping. Constantly. 24/7. Every second. Every minute. Sleeping, awake, running, walking, dreaming, whatever you do. Heart is pumping all the time. From the time you're born to the time you're 6 feet under, the heart is pumping. Agree? Anybody is in doubt about it? Heart is pumping. And where is the heart pumping the blood to? Heart is pumping blood to heart is pumping blood into arteries. Arteries are tubes, just like network of roads. The heart is pumping blood into the tubes, one like this. We call them arteries. So heart is pumping, the blood is going through, right? And you don't realize any of it, right? So when every time the heart pumps blood, our arteries are not like a rigid tube like this. They're not. Every time the heart pumps blood, the artery relaxes. Each and every single time artery pumps blood, the artery relaxes. And so there's a divine romance in our body between the heart and the blood vessels. Each time it's kind of a dances with stars. So they move in coordination very well choreographed that you hear nothing about it. 5 liters of blood running through us, so you don't hear or feel anything about it. Every single time the heart pumps blood, the artery relaxes. It's going like this all the time. Okay? So once you are eating salt, what is retained? There's more blood to pump, more volume. But there's only so much the artery can take, right? There's one other thing that happens. These artery walls, just like in smoking, you can tell somebody is smoking from a few feet away because his face looks different. Looks like darkish or hue. You can tell he quit smoking, the face becomes bright. That tells you that the arteries are choked. Okay? So same thing happens with salt too. So somebody came to me earlier on and what medication he was taking. So most common medication given for high blood pressure are the water pills to get rid of excess water. And second set of pills, there are about 1,000 of them. They all work on the artery to make it relax more. They want the artery to relax so that it can receive the blood. So when you eat salt, the artery no longer relaxes as well. The heart is pumping more volume into an artery that's already not relaxing. It's choked. So instead of being in a Dances with Stars, in a dancing floor, your heart and your arteries now just entered a boxing match. They're fighting. The heart is pumping, the artery says, I can't expand. So that increases the pressure. Each time your heart is pumping, the artery is not sufficiently relaxing. The heart is pumping more blood, that's what makes high blood pressure. So you created a battle between the heart and the blood vessels by your taste habits and social pressures and so on and so forth. Instead of moving in an extraordinarily coordinated effort, now they are fighting with each other. And typical of dancers who are out of sync, the fight happens in certain places. We'll go over that. So you created a battle inside of your body between the heart and the blood vessels, which is called high blood pressure now. And in that battle, there is no winners. There is no winners. The heart loses, the arteries lose. The heart loses, and the arteries lose. How does the heart lose? So, the heart is working on. If you have high blood pressure, the heart is working on all the time, 24/7. So it keeps on working out. The higher the blood pressure, the more it works out. What happens? The heart muscle gets bigger. Just like you go work in a gym and work out any muscle, the muscle becomes bigger, right? That's how you go to the gym and lift weights. So the heart muscle gets bigger, enlarged heart failure, very common in black and white. High blood pressure is described as a malignant disease in Black America.
Why is it so common?
I wrote a whole book about it. Why it is so common. We'll get to that in a moment. Yes. So Black America, high blood pressure is a malignant disease. When we use the word malignant, it means it's like a cancer, it's very bad. Why is so bad? Because high blood pressure happens at an earlier age. High blood pressure is difficult to control, takes more medications. High blood pressure causes complications at a much younger age. That's why we call it a malignant disease. So it's much more important in Black America to just throw away the salt. Okay? Much, much more important. So now, the heart and the blood vessels are fighting. The heart has become bigger. The heart is getting bigger. And it's become enlarged. And what is wrong with that? Having a big heart should be a good thing, right? Have a big heart, yeah, sure. Here's a large heart. So literally, philosophically it's a good thing, but literally it's not good. So a number of things go wrong with the heart when it becomes big. Heart is supposed to be an elliptical type thing. It squeezes like this. More like a football with an open end on this side. Squeezes, the blood goes this way. So now when the heart becomes enlarged, it becomes more like a round baseball, just like you saw in the picture. So it doesn't pump efficiently anymore. At all. And more importantly, we go back to our friend Moses, the gallstone. So when the heart becomes enlarged and thick, it loses its capacity to relax. It can still squeeze and pump, but it does not relax as well. The muscle becomes thick and loses its relaxing ability. And we call it diastolic heart failure. I don't know if you heard the word. Systole is when it pumps, diastole when it relaxes. Complicated words. But diastolic heart failure has become the #1 reason for hospitalization now. Put that in my papers. Not systolic heart failure. You see that too. When you get a heart attack, you get a systolic heart failure. But diastolic heart failure is when the heart has become big. So what is wrong with being big? What is wrong with not being able to relax? So you on a golf course and you go there and say, today I'm at a new rule. You cannot take your golf club all the way up here. I want you to just take it only up to here. That's the new rule. Okay? So this is the backswing, right? You can only take it up to here. You cannot take it up. So now you swing from here. Do you think the ball will go as far? No. So that's what happens in the body. In the earliest stages, when your relaxing capabilities decrease, early stages of diastolic heart failure, what you notice is you're not as energetic anymore. You can't do the same things that you used to do last time. Or you do. Subtly, it kind of develops within a very slow fashion. And during that time, you just convince yourself, I'm just getting older. I can't do this. I'm not no spring chicken. So now from here, you lost the backswing to here. And you continue to eat the same thing and take a few more pills. And then a few months later, you'll literally say, I cannot. I want you to only take up to here. That you cannot, the ball goes even shorter distance. And keeps on progressing. Then you're going to say one day, all my greens are closed, only putting greens are good. So now you go putt from it. So when you're only putting, is what's happening to heart is very enlarged in stage 4 heart failure. In the earliest stages, you just don't have as much energy. As you go further, energy goes down, you may need more pills, you may get tired, short of breath, you may start developing swelling in the legs. And when you got to go to the putting level, you can barely go to the bathroom, living room, bedroom, and your life is confined to the putting range. That is stage 4 heart failure. And that's what is happening. So if you're not worried about getting a stroke or a heart attack, just think about heart failure. You're going to be living in heart failure. If you just keep up your salt intake, living in heart failure. So that is one big problem, how the heart loses in this battle. Heart loses in this battle, okay? Also, loss of backswing. Yes?
Can't be reversed if you.
To some extent, it can be. But when the heart goes to stage 3, 3, 4, you're going in and out of the hospitals all the time. We call them round trippers. They come to the hospital, heart failure, we tune them up, do this, do that, they'll feel good for a while, go home, come right back in about a few weeks, few days later. And that's how you're going to read the rest of your life. And that's extremely common. Yes, ma'am.
I took my father and mother for many treatments to the hospital. None of the doctors ever indicated her or told me so I could explain to them. Have you ever recommended this as a cardiologist to the whole nation of the United States,
So-
to educate the patients? Why are writing such and such medications?
Yeah, there's a lot of problem. You just hit the nail on the head. That's why I'm in this mission impossible. So, there's a lot of problem in the hospitals and doctors. Around the corner here on Salem Avenue, there's one Mr. Black who's gone through two kidney transplants. Somebody going, he runs a newspaper, and TV radio. So I gave a presentation to him, and he had gone through 2 kidney transplants, and I think he told me about 6 strokes. His blood pressure generally runs around 250 or so. And he has been in the hospital more than 20 times. Many times. In his entire course of hospitalization, nobody ever told him that he should go like this. Okay? So he told me, come back, we'll talk about it. He put it on the radio and he says, can I bring you some lunch? I guess, no, sir, I bring my lunch. I said, you cannot get anything healthy for $10. I said, I'll bring my lunch with $10. So what did I took a tub of oatmeal, half a dozen bananas, a box of raisins, and a bottle of peanuts, all under $10. The idea that you cannot eat healthy without money is incorrect. You just have to make the right choice. So doctors and nurses are part of the problem, not part of the solution. You're absolutely right. So that's why Kathy is there all the time, and guess who gets this one most of the time? It's the doctors and nurses. I have them in my pocket, in my coat pocket, in my everything. I hand them. I hand them out in the airports, in the weddings. You come to a wedding. So it's a good time to remember what you should be doing. So I'm constantly, it's a one-man mission at this point. So I invite you all to be part of my mission. Then the mission becomes possible. Yes.
When you go to a restaurant, you mention Indian food,
Yes.
and I love Indian food, but, I've never been to an Indian restaurant that there hasn't been a tremendous amount of salt.
Yes,
No matter
yes.
what you
Yes.
order.
So heart disease among Indians is 4 times as common as Caucasians. For exactly the reason.
But you don't need the salt to
Yes.
get the same taste. Is there any
Same thing. The
restaurant?
failure to think that food doesn't taste good with salt, and failure to understand how many ways salt is served. Same thing. So anytime I go to a restaurant, I drop this on my table. You want this? Okay. So, and the waitress looks at it, let me see what my chef can do. Okay. She takes it back to the chef. And they do prepare things with us. And we only go to those places where we're willing to come.
And you have a list of those places, because
I am in the process of making them. So Bob Evans is one place I often go, for example. I eat breakfast. I eat eggs over easy, and I don't eat bread. So you saw that bread thing? Salty 6. Something you should take home. American Heart Association has released Salty 6 more than a dozen years. And I've been a very ardent supporter of that. And I give it to every patient that I ever see. 6 things that you don't realize how much salt you consume. Okay? And bread is the number 1. And there are 100 different countries in the world made rules about how much salt you can put in bread. And America is not one of them. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have syncope,
Yeah.
and you have to take salt.
Yes. So every time I give a talk, there's somebody. That happens in some people who have problems with their kidney mechanism, how it deals with sodium. But most commonly happens as an end result of already been eating salt for so long, and your kidney lost its ability to balance these things. And you're already taking several medications. You're no longer eating the regular food. Same thing like hypoglycemia. You heard of hypoglycemia? Normal people don't get hypoglycemia. So diabetes will get hypoglycemia. Okay? So diabetes get hypoglycemia. So you shouldn't say everybody should eat sugar, so you don't get hypoglycemia. That's a sure way to get everybody to hypoglycemia. So it's a reverse causation. If you want to prevent getting low sodium problem, you will start with not eating sodium. It's totally counterintuitive. But there are people who will need salt. You're right. That doesn't mean the rest of us should be eating salt. Yes.
Is there a way to determine with a doctor's visit or blood test or something to see if your heart is starting to enlarge based on what you've discussed so far?
Yes, there is, but in the early stages, very subtle. It's what's called echocardiogram. The picture that I showed you on the left side, that is echocardiogram, ultrasound of the heart. But I tell you, by the time the echocardiogram picks up, your heart is getting bigger, it's already pretty big. Okay, it's already pretty big. So you need to catch it very early. Now, we saw how the heart lost in this battle. Now let's get to how the artery loses its battle, fighting high blood pressure. So now on the top there is a blood flow, water flowing, what we call laminar, smooth flow. You stand in front of a river like in Cincinnati and stand at the Ohio River edge, you have a hard time figuring out which way the river is flowing. Yes? The river is going so smooth you don't know. But if you stand in front of your temple and look at this little minor river that's falling down, there's no doubt about it, right? So top one is when the water is heart is pumping, the artery is relaxing, everything going smooth, you don't hear nothing. Okay? But when the arteries and the heart start fighting, the blood flow is not smooth anymore. It's very irregular. So just like in real life, if you're driving straight on the road at a certain speed, and the road suddenly forks or turns, and you're paying attention, you slow down and turn. But if you're like a bullet that's already taken off and you have no control over it, what's going to happen? You're going to crash on that edge. So that's what happens in real life. So you get what's called a scratch pattern. So the other day there was a news, another golfer, Tiger Woods, remember him? He was driving somewhere in a canyon road and he didn't slow down and crashed on the side. That's what happening in our body. When the heart and the artery are not coordinated in the relaxation, and the blood has to turn or branch in those corners, just like the dancers who are out of sync, they step on each other's toes or bump into each other's nose. There are a few places in the body, those arteries are vulnerable. And every place the artery forks or turns and the blood cannot slow down, you get a scratch. You get a scratch. The artery gets scratch. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The arteries are getting damaged on the inside, just like smoking. In those bifurcation, forking, trifurcation, starting points, turning points, locations like that. The arteries are getting scratched constantly with each and every heartbeat. With each and every heartbeat, arteries are getting scratched. Once they get scratched, cholesterol innocently builds on those damaged areas. There's an example of an artery, I don't know if you can see well enough or not, where the arrow points out the picture of somebody's arteries of the heart. And the blockage is right at that point. I don't know if you can see that. We call that the widowmaker blockage. When the blockage goes down, the entire heart loses blood instantly. And here's another example, artery going to the brain. Right at the fork, there's a blockage. At the arrow, I don't know if you can see it. So why did the blockage happen there? This is why we do the surgeries. Because we have to build a bypass around the blockage. Because artery beyond that blockage is okay. This is how the cardiologists put a balloon and open that blockage. Because it happens in the spots. So why did the blockage happen there? If it is a cholesterol problem, my friends, question is, why is the blockage happen only here? Not here, not here, not there, not there, anywhere else. Why only there? Why only there? That's a question. That's a problem that's been in front of us all these years. You've not paid attention. Why is the blockage here? Nothing here, nothing there. This artery going to the brain that we clean up. The reason is at that bifurcation is the maximum turbulence. That's where the artery experiences most scratching effect. If it's a cholesterol problem, like it's raining outside, it should be everywhere. If it's sunny outside, it should be everywhere. Why is it only there? Why do we blame cholesterol? Because we have a pill to sell more than anything else. And no matter how many cholesterol pills you take, if you don't quit smoking, not going to help you much. And same applies to not controlling your salt intake. You're fighting a losing battle. So unless you understand this heart enlargement and scratching effect of your arteries, you're not going to pay attention. So this has been right under my nose, to be honest, from the time I started doing heart surgery in the mid-70s. So I came to realization only about 15, 20 years, I should engage in prevention, because this is preventable. It's totally preventable. This is why American Heart Association says 80% of heart disease is preventable. In fact, I'll tell you that in the last 6 months, I may have operated one person whose heart disease was not preventable. Okay, maybe one, at a stretch. Virtually every time I make a cut on somebody's body, he's suffering something that is really preventable. That is preventable. Okay, so that's how much you got in your own control. If you control your taste, you can prevent it. And this is artery going to the brain. And lastly, this is the brain on your left side in people who don't have high blood pressure, and the right side of the brain on people who have high blood pressure. And just at a gross look, you see all these changes. All these changes. This is dementia coming. This is dementia coming. And if you don't care about anything else, the prospect that you will live in dementia and in pain is a big problem. So if you prioritize health, you'll be surprised how easily taste will change. But if you put taste first, health always going to suffer. So lastly, about the obesity. I can go on about a few other subjects if you have time and interest. So if you want to lose weight, you need to start with cutting back on salt. Two things happen. First, the water weight goes up in a matter of days. Okay? And secondly, what happens is, if you don't put salt into things, there's what's called a stop sign in your brain. Let's say you like bananas, okay? That's your most favorite thing to eat. How many bananas can you eat? You can eat 1, 2, maybe 3. That's a lot. You must still be hungry, but you cannot eat any more than 2 or 3 bananas. But if you make a banana pie, you can finish out 20 bananas. So same thing with many other forces. If I ask you to eat potato chips, unsalted, eat so much and you're done. But if you give them salted potato chips, you can keep them eating all day long. Peanuts, they give you unsalted peanuts, eat so much and you're done. But if you take them salted, you keep on going. So the stop sign in your brain that tells you to stop disappears or goes away or moves further back. This is what the industry doesn't want people to know. Industry doesn't help me to promote prevention of hypertension. But if I start talking about sugar, they will sponsor me. They'll send a charter jet for me and put me up in a 5-star hotel and they provide 20 people to run this show. Because through me, they're going to sell so many products. But if I say don't put salt, they don't want to hear about it. And they will do everything possible to silence this. Okay? That's exactly the reason. The stop sign disappears. You try that yourself. Just like this potato chip company says, You cannot stop with one of our potato chips. Keep going. That's exactly what the industry wants. Keep eating more and more and more without any stop. And that is the principal reason why people put on weight between large portion size and water retention. If you do the opposite, the water retention goes away and your portion size progressively goes smaller. And you're happy with it. You're full, you're done. And once you get used to unsalted diet and reach a point like you're reacting against smoking, you don't like the taste of salt, period. Doesn't matter, don't know about anything but that. You don't like it. You can reach that stage very easily and quickly, and you can get there. So I'm going to stop here, and hopefully some of you will join this mission and make it possible. And somebody asked me a question about why Latin America is so salt sensitive, right? So you recognize that picture? Okay. How about this one? Okay. We can talk more about it.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else you want to talk about? You want me to talk about this? Okay.
Yes, please.
So back in the day, a time in history called Middle Passage. During this time, most of the slave trade happened. During that time, slave traders picked up young men and women from this part of Africa called the Gold Coast and carried them across the Atlantic to various destinations in boats during summertime. And that journey on average lasted 3 months. And while they were on those boats, they were packed like this. And if you say Middle Passage on Google, you'll see many images like that, many of them like that. So while they were packed like that under the hull, traveling across the Atlantic for 3 months straight, they died of one problem. A lot of people died of one problem, and that was dehydration. Who said that? Dehydration. Of course, dehydration. So when they died, they got thrown overboard. So those who made to the shores of the various destinations had a defense mechanism. The defense mechanism was salt sensitive. So they retain more water, more likely to survive. So the present day Black Americans who are descendants of the slave trade are very likely to be salt sensitive because of that survival mechanism that saved them on the boat back then, but it's still paying the price. But Black Americans who came recently, like me, a recent immigrant, there are Black Americans from South Africa over here. If you go to the south side of Chicago, for example, you take a Black American gentleman who is a descendant of a slave trade, very likely high salt sensitive. From the same neighborhood, you pick up a gentleman who is a recent immigrant, like me, is not salt sensitive. Exactly the opposite. Okay. So that's what is the problem. And that's what we need to educate. Unfortunately, many Black American celebrities not on board. That includes Oprah Winfrey, King James, John Legend. I can go on. And more than 50 congressmen in the Congressional Black Caucus who I personally approached and gave them a copy of this book over time. They all agree that it's the problem. They are totally bought or controlled by the processing industry. So I don't think legislation is going to come anytime soon to help out in America. We are behind most 2/3 of the world in salt awareness. If you go to Finland, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, you can get low salt cheese. If you go to even Arabian countries, Asian countries, there's a limited amount of salt you can put on your food, in your bread. No such regulations come. So only option is for us to have a grassroots effort, educational, like we are doing. So just like you called me to come here based on somebody heard me talk somewhere else, that's how the mission has spread. And I give an average of about 100 talks a year. even through the COVID years, I've still given a lot of talks through Zoom. We visited more than 100 churches, I lost count of it. So I keep doing it. So now that you've heard this talk, some of you become members of the mission. So you're going to promote it and let your friends and family know. So with that, I'm going to conclude. So I'll open the floor for any additional conversations, questions, comments, and whatever.
And so hold your question, I'll bring the microphone to you. I just have an interesting, well, it's an anecdote, we'll see if it's interesting. When I was in high school, I played football, and we started in August. And we would do two-a-days, and they wanted to do two things. One, limit the water that we drank, and two, gave us salt pills. Which from not just this, but my experience through the rest of my life, those are the two dumbest things you could probably do for a physical activity.
Yes.
Right?
Both.
Okay.
So since the Dr. Dahl's testimony to the Congress, that thing has become, you no longer see salt tablets on the sidelines. That was a very common thing, right? You're right.
When you bake, almost every recipe calls for salt and baking soda. Baking soda has sodium in it too, correct?
Yes, I'm not sure about the difference between baking soda salt versus regular salt, to be honest.
But sodium is sodium.
But sodium is sodium. Yes, I don't like. The only sodium you should be getting is from the fruits and nuts and things like that. Okay?
Stop baking.
So, no. We do my daughter makes a pizza, by the way, without any salt. So God didn't create it. I tell the chef, you're a good chef, I challenge you, make food tasty without adding salt, and they do well, actually. So what do you do for salt alternative? That's what. So there is some samples here at the entrance. Yes, try those. Mrs. Dash is another one, which is not salt, but herbs mixed to give the taste of salt. But more than that, try more ginger garlic, cilantro, tamarind, lime and lemon. And if your food is a little bland for you, instead of putting salt on it, try some lime or lemon. Okay? And during baking process, use more yeast if you want to see this thing rise.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So instead of using salt, try that. There is unsalted vinegar. These are different things you can do. And there are about 100 different spices you can use. There's so many types of chilies, for example.
It's a chemical reaction that makes the baked product have
yes.
air holes or whatever you call it.
Right. Yeast is actually the one that's important.
Even without yeast, they still ask for baking soda and stuff.
Try it next time without adding. See what happens. Okay. So we have done that. So definitely possible. Soups, baked, desserts, every kind of meats can be made without salt.
But I don't even buy processed foods anymore because they have so much salt.
Right, exactly. Yes.
I haven't touched a salt shaker for 50 years,
Congratulations.
but I frequently use ketchup on my food. Am I defeating myself? Is something
To some extent. So 80% of the excess salt you're consuming comes from not because you are adding yourself, but you're consuming things that already have a lot of salt added. So American Heart Association produced this Salty 6, and I encourage you guys to put this on your refrigerator. And as a constant reminder where salt is. Six most common things. Not my making, this is American Heart Association. So that's why I made a copy of this for all of you. So you might be getting a good bit of salt in. Yes, condiments, processed condiments, yes. Okay.
So I noticed you have the books up here. Are these for sale or?
Well,
And what I didn't mention in your bio was you've written like 7 different books on this subject, right?
I've written Salt Kills is my first book, and this one is second. Salt Black America Silent Killer is my second book, and I wrote a chapter for a textbook on dementia alone, how many different ways you get dementia from eating salt. And I read a blog at saltkills.com. One of the subjects I dealt with recently is low sodium that lady in the back was mentioning. So why low sodium, when you hear of somebody having low sodium, why you shouldn't be going eating salt yourself? What's the theory behind that? And I also wrote about how you get diabetes from eating salt. All these subjects are written at saltkills.com. And these books, these are not for profit mission. I didn't get into it to make money. And encourage you to take a copy of it. And if you feel like supporting the mission with some money, you feel free to do it. It goes to a nonprofit charity, which prints more books and goes to churches. Because when I go to minority churches, most of them don't have the money to do that. I just give them away. So I've given away more than 20,000 books. Given away more than 20,000 books and last contact. So you'll be helping the mission if you like to do it. It's up to you. But I would encourage you to take it. Yes.
This may be a very silly question. You talked about table salt.
Yes.
And some of the recipes call for sea salt,
Oh my goodness.
kosher salt. Is there a difference in those or not?
Yes. So just for asking that question, I want to give you this book. So, unfortunately, sea salt, Himalayan salt, kosher salt, Celtic salt, pink salt, they're all salt. They're every bit salt as the modern salt that you buy in the store. You get all the bad effects of the salt doing the Himalayan salt. And the trace elements they claim that they're in those special salts is not how you get those elements. You should get what the body needs from eating things what the body is supposed to eat, not salt. So there's no benefit to be had from those elements that they claim, okay? On the other hand, you pay the price for all the salt that you get. In fact, this is one of the first press releases I issued, actually. It cost me $5,000 to do that against Costco. And you can get that by go to heart surgeon and say Costco, and you will see that. And I don't know if this is connected to internet or not again. You say heart surgeon and Costco, you will see my very first press release. So Costco back then claimed in their advertisement, sea salt is better for your health, okay? And I called on them on the carpet and issued a press release. I went in front of Costco, put myself a picture, posted it on the internet, and Costco and every other company stopped advertising that sea salt is better for you. You do not see the advertising. But they've done with this subtle marketing to make people like you believe that sea salt is better for you. The campaign is called Now Made with Sea Salt. Makes you believe there's a new management running the old restaurant. And everybody wants to try it, right? So that campaign is very successful, very damaging. These are many subversive ways they use their talent and money to hurt people instead of helping, okay? And did you get that, sir? Yeah, heart surgeon and Costco, you will see. Yes. Okay. But the battle is not won because they figured out how to market it without actually saying it's better for you. Okay, that's a very good question. Yes.
So, and I'll keep your hands up, I'll get to you. So, it seems like the best way to implement this would be by getting some information about, I don't know if I should use the word diet, but not only a diet, but recipes so we can make these meals that are flavorful without salt. And so what's the best way to get that information? And also other information. Is there a website? Do we just take your name and put it in Google and that'll lead us to where we need to go?
Saltkills.com.
Saltkills.com.
One word.
Okay.
At least you all my writings. So, the answer to that is you have to do individual experimentation. Everybody's taste is different. But once you understand that you're hurting yourself, compromising your life, just like smoking, and if you understand the real life, you're creating a battle between your heart and blood vessels, in which both are going to lose. Once you understand that, then I believe you all are going to make your own effort to figure out how to eat better. Okay? Yes.
We are a Jewish congregation. Although most of us are not kosher, there are rules of kashrut that many Jews do follow. One of them is that you kasher your meat, which means you salt the meat to pull out the blood, and then you rinse it off afterwards. But obviously, there's a significant amount of salt left in whatever red meats that have been kashered. Would that cause additional heart problems among that population?
Answer is yes. If you use the salt to process your meat, that's why the frozen chicken is on the list of American Heart Association 6 items. I think you can figure out. I don't think Moses meant for you to put salt in. I don't. But you got to figure out. You got to figure out how to come up with an alternative. First of all, this salt got into the food because it was a preservative. It was a preservative. But now everybody has a refrigerator, except in the poverty-stricken areas. We no longer need refrigerators and no longer need salt to preserve our food. Actually, for the most part, there are exceptions. And fresh food is available largely. So we should attempt not to use salt processing in many things. It's actually common in Indian culture too, because in South India it's very hot. So fish, what you would stay for 2 hours becomes spoiled. So there is a process just like what you described to preserve the fish. By the time the man catches the fish to get to your house itself is gone. So they process that with high salt. So now no longer need to do that. You need to get creative. Yes.
Is there a difference? Can you talk a little bit about potassium chloride, and is consuming potassium chloride the same or better or worse?
I don't recommend eating potassium chloride as an option. No. There is a product in the market called no salt, I think it's called. It's potassium chloride. I would not recommend. So it may or may not do damage, I don't know, but I don't recommend. I would, if you are interested in eating potassium, the fruits and nuts is a source. And if you're interested in eating salty taste without adding salt, Mrs. Dash and this new product that just got on the table is your choices. Yes.
Both my parents died of heart problems. What percent? One died of heart attacks, like silent heart attack. The other one died of congestive heart failure. Neither one of them used salt. What's the percentage of people who don't use salt that die from heart attacks?
I'm very sorry to hear that. There is a certain percentage of people who get heart disease without dietary factors. And there are congenital heart problems, congenital problems with the kidneys and adrenal glands and the pituitary gland that mess up your management system. And somebody has to, instead of just giving a salt tablet, somebody has to dive deep into figuring out why you're losing sodium, what is the solution to that. And oftentimes nobody takes the time to do that. And it's simply a knee-jerk reaction. Sodium is low, take salt tablet. Unfortunately, that puts you on perpetual wrong path. There are even cholesterol. I said cholesterol pills is not going to help, but there is a role for cholesterol pills. For example, if you already had a heart attack or a stroke, there is a data to show that taking cholesterol pill does help in preventing a second, third heart attack. Okay. Also, to your point, there is a condition called familial hypercholesterolemia, where the cholesterol level by birth is very high. And that's a rare problem, but it does happen. The youngest person I've done heart surgery where we did bypass was 17-year-old. Okay, he never had salt and he never smoked. He still had heart disease. So those things do happen. Heart surgery is not going to disappear if you don't stop smoking and don't eat salt, but we will limit it to those kind of conditions where we unfortunately have met that problem. So without knowing more details, I can't tell you, but that does happen.
Is cholesterol affected by salt intake, or are they completely separate issues?
At this point, I would say they're separate issues. So two independent issues, independent risk factors. Framingham study, which actually was done back in the 70s and earlier, listed the risk factors. Number one was smoking. Actually, number two was high blood pressure. cholesterol came very distant, third or fourth, only if it was very high, like I was just describing. Or suddenly, because when somebody crosses this blockage, and it's full of cholesterol, and they say, oh my goodness, we have a pill to stop. So we're done completely in the wrong track. Nobody looked at why cholesterol built in that particular location, like I was pointing out. The problem is the location, not cholesterol. The problem is the dynamics of that location. The fight that's going on between the artery and the blood flow in that particular location, not cholesterol. Cholesterol is an incidental factor. But as long as the fight goes on, no matter how low you drive with cholesterol, you still going to build cholesterol. Okay? So I hope that answered the question. Yes.
So raise your hand so I can get to you while he's answering the last question. Later.
You mentioned type 2 diabetes as part of the salt issues. Can you, one, explain, I get a little confused with diabetes because there appears to be different types of diabetes, such as adult onset, and then you're talking type 2. Can you perhaps distinguish type 2 diabetes and the linkage to salt? When I have my blood work done every year, the one issue that keeps popping up is I'm getting closer and closer to that diabetes line. Thank you. And I don't know, maybe because unfortunately I'm pointing her targets when it comes to salt. I'm not really good at keeping away from salt, although I think after today that may change, but that's my question.
I appreciate your question. Actually, it is a two So type 2 diabetes, adult onset diabetes, not the type 1 diabetes that affects young people. Type 1 diabetes can happen in older people too, but largely the diabetes that affects your age, taking some liberties there, but is a type 2 diabetes, okay? So if you want to prevent type 2 diabetes, I say this all the time when I go to talks among doctors. If you want to prevent type 2 diabetes, you better start preventing hypertension. If we don't prevent hypertension, type 2 diabetes is coming. And if you prevent type hypertension, you're going to hit two birds with one stone, okay? But if you're not paying attention to prevent hypertension, diabetes is coming. And this is something I stumbled on, actually, because I noticed for years that every time I see somebody with type 2 diabetes, they already have high blood pressure for some time, okay? Then they develop type 2 diabetes. They've been on hypertension 10 years, 20 years, then they have type 2 diabetes. I don't see the other way around. I have diabetes type 2, now I got high blood pressure. I don't see that. So just in my personal observation, I started tracking this stuff and came across this study published by University of Nashville, University of Vanderbilt, Nashville, okay? So very, very interesting. So what is happening here is, if we can indulge me for a moment, this is glucose molecule, okay? So when you're breathing, what do we breathe? We breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. Breathe in oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide. So where does the carbon dioxide come from? So by breaking down this glucose molecule, with the help of the oxygen, we create energy that runs our body. That's the gas that runs our body. By breaking down the glucose molecule, with the help of oxygen, we generate energy. That's what we need, right? That's why we breathe, okay? So when the glucose molecule breaks down, it produces CO2, carbon dioxide, that we breathe out. We knew all about that, all these years. But we forgot one thing else. That is this one. What is that? That's water. So when the glucose molecule breaks down with the help of oxygen, it splits into carbon dioxide and water. We didn't know what that meant until this Dr. Jan Sersi from Vanderbilt described what the problem is, okay? And what it means is that human body by itself will produce water as long as breaking down glucose, okay? Human body is capable of producing water by itself to some extent. But if you're in a situation where you're not drinking enough water, like as in cosmonauts, he was a Russian scientist. He started his thesis while he was in Russia investigating cosmonauts and their eating habits. and he continued his research in Germany, then continued on to London, and he finally produced his research. What he showed that if we keep on eating salt and don't drink enough water, human body starts producing more and more water by itself to compensate. Human body will produce more and more water to compensate. How does it do that? It breaks down more glucose than necessary. Okay? Human body will start producing more glucose, breaking down more glucose than necessary just to meet the water requirement, not the energy requirement. Okay? So if you're eating salt, after a while you don't drink enough water. That's what he found. So you can break down more glucose. And how do you break down more glucose? There's a long list of mechanisms how the human body breaks down things. One of them is steroids. The brain produces steroids that break down glucose into water and carbohydrates. So what he found, both in human beings and in animals, that you keep eating salt, you keep on producing more steroid than necessary. Human body produces more steroids than necessary so that you get the required water content. It's a little complicated, right? So human body starts producing more steroids than necessary just so you get enough water. And in that process, your glucose mechanism goes up after a while. Okay? And you get type 2 diabetes.
Doctor, my 11th grade chemistry is making me ask this question. Shouldn't this be
Serious.
Shouldn't there be a
Thank
C
you for
there?
Thank you for that.
I did pay attention that day.
Thank you.
Well,
Somebody else pointed out, but I need to correct it. Thank you so very much. That means you're paying attention. There is actually, if you go to saltkids.com, there's a full explanation of what I just told you. And it says research links stable salt diabetes. And you can see it. And in the last 2 years, another paper got produced in Europe. It actually tells you that if you eat 2 grams of sodium, right, every gram of sodium increases the risk of diabetes by 40%. Every gram of sodium, salt, increases the risk by 40%, something like that. Okay, I'm very fuzzy on the exact numbers, but high number. So there is a direct relationship between eating salt, not only to high blood pressure, but to type 2 diabetes. Okay, and the reverse is exactly true. If you stop eating salt, your diabetic medication go down, your hypertension medication go down. Okay?
So, okay, final comment. So we have streamed this using our new technology, and we are also recording this. And so a comment I want to make to Suzanne is, it's obvious to me that the camera adds 10 to 20 pounds because I'm looking at my image right now. And I'm not really pleased with that. So if you could Photoshop me to be as thin as the doctor, I would appreciate it. But there was, I didn't know how impactful this talk was going to be for me personally. And because of weight and the fact that I am taking a blood pressure medication, I'm going to do some research on my own, as you suggested, to see how I can incorporate some of this stuff into my own life. And so I don't, if I live a long time, and you don't want the dementia, you don't want some of those other problems that he said. So very informative. I appreciate you being here, and let's give the doctor another round of applause.
I will hang around for a little while. I am not expecting to take these books back.
So if I donate something, I don't want it to still cost me around. So what's a good donation? So for a break even, I'll give you $5 or $10.
$10.
$10. Okay.
And if you want a receipt, a non-profit, I can give it. So this belongs on your refrigerator.
I got it.
This belongs on your refrigerator.
Yeah. We take that out.
Thank you, Doctor.